What if I told you that a city smaller than many American states has managed to shock visitors from the United States more than any other place in Asia? What if I told you that Americans who step into Singapore in 2025 often say, "I didn't expect this at all"? Singapore isn't just another global city, it's a futuristic hub where tradition and technology blend in ways that often leave outsiders speechless. In this video, we'll dive deep into the things that surprise Americans the most about Singapore in 2025. From its unbelievable cleanliness to its world-class infrastructure, from its futuristic laws to its cultural diversity, Singapore constantly rewrites what people think a modern city should look like. And here's the real shocker. Many Americans admit that they sometimes feel like Singapore is ahead of their own country in areas like transportation, healthcare, and even public safety. Numbers back this up. Over 65% of American tourists in 2025 say Singapore exceeded their expectations. That's a huge percentage for a city that only covers about 270 square miles. So what exactly makes Americans so surprised? Let's explore the top 10 things that leave them amazed, sometimes confused, and often completely inspired. Stick with me until the end, because the last point is something most Americans simply cannot believe until they see it with their own eyes. The cleanliness everywhere. The very first thing that shocks Americans is the sheer cleanliness of Singapore. In the United States, even major cities like New York, Los Angeles, or Chicago struggle with litter, graffiti, and pollution. In contrast, Singapore feels like a spotless paradise. Streets are polished, sidewalks are gum-free, and even public restrooms are immaculate. What surprises Americans most is not just the cleanliness, but how it's maintained. Singapore has strict laws against littering, smoking in public spaces, or chewing gum in unauthorized places. But rather than feeling restrictive, Americans often describe it as refreshing. About 70% of American visitors in 2025 admitted they had never walked through a city that felt this clean and organized. The efficiency of public transport. Americans are also stunned by Singapore's public transport system. Trains arrive on time, buses run smoothly, and everything is integrated with apps and digital payments. For Americans used to delays in New York's subway or underfunded systems in other states, Singapore's efficiency feels futuristic. In fact, surveys show that more than 60% of Americans visiting in 2025 say Singapore's transport is better than anything they've experienced back home. With clean trains, safety, and affordability, they often wonder why the United States, with its vast resources, can't match Singapore's efficiency. The multicultural harmony. Another shock for Americans is how diverse Singapore is. Chinese, Malaysia, Indian, and Western communities all live together, and yet the city functions with incredible harmony. Unlike in the US, where cultural differences often lead to tension, Singapore celebrates diversity with national holidays for all major religions and festivals. More than 80% of American tourists in 2025 said they were blown away by how different communities could share one small island while maintaining peace. This cultural unity feels inspiring, especially when compared to the increasing divisions back home. The strict but safe laws. Americans often feel surprised by the strict laws in Singapore. Things like jaywalking, littering, or chewing gum can lead to fines. At first, many Americans are shocked by how serious the government is about small infractions. But then they realize these laws contribute to Singapore's order, safety, and low crime rate. Over 75% of Americans surveyed said they felt safer walking alone in Singapore at night than in almost any major US city. This sense of security is priceless and often becomes one of the highlights of their visit. The green city vision. Singapore is not just a concrete jungle, it's literally a garden city. Americans are amazed to see skyscrapers covered in greenery, rooftop gardens, and even indoor waterfalls like the one at Changi Airport. In the US, cities often lack greenery, while Singapore blends nature and urban life seamlessly. Americans find it hard to believe that a city this advanced still manages to dedicate so much space to parks and sustainability. In 2025, about 68% of American travelers said the greenery was the most unexpected part of their Singapore experience. the futuristic technology everywhere. Americans are used to advanced tech in Silicon Valley, but Singapore surprises them by applying technology to everyday life. From cashless payments to smart traffic systems and robotic cleaning in malls, technology here is not just for the elite, it's for everyone. Over 70% of Americans in 2025 admitted they felt Singapore's smart city systems were at least a decade ahead of many US cities. This makes them wonder, why can't America, with all its tech companies, apply innovations this effectively? The food culture. Food is another shock factor. Americans are amazed by hawker centers where you can eat world-class meals for just a few dollars. Michelin-starred chicken rice, Indian curries, Malay satay, and Chinese dim sum, all in one place. More than 85% of Americans in 2025 said they had never seen a country where cheap street food tasted this good and was so safe to eat. For many, it challenges the fast food culture back in the States. The size versus global power. Americans are stunned when they realize how small Singapore is compared to its global influence. The country is smaller than Rhode Island, yet its economy, military efficiency, and global reputation are massive. Over 60% of Americans surveyed admitted they had underestimated Singapore before visiting. They often say, how can such a tiny nation be so powerful? This size-to-power ratio becomes one of the biggest surprises. The discipline and respect in society. One thing Americans quickly notice is the discipline and respect in Singapore's society. From students respecting teachers to citizens obeying laws without complaint, it feels very different from the individualistic culture of the US. About 72% of Americans in 2025 said this level of discipline was surprising but admirable. It makes them rethink how respect and community values shape a nation's success. The world's best airport. Finally, the biggest shock often comes at the very beginning or end of their trip. Changi Airport. Americans are amazed by the Jewel Complex, the indoor waterfall, butterfly gardens, and seamless services. Many say it feels more like a luxury shopping mall combined with a nature park than an airport. Over 90% of American tourists in 2025 ranked Changi as the best airport they had ever experienced. It leaves such a lasting impression that they often compare it to US airports, which feel outdated and stressful in comparison. So there you have it, the 10 things that surprise Americans the most about Singapore in 2025. From its spotless streets and multicultural unity to its futuristic technology and incredible food culture, Singapore isn't just a destination, it's an eye-opening experience. For many Americans, a trip here doesn't just change how they see Singapore, it changes how they see the future of cities around the world. It makes them ask, if Singapore can achieve this with such limited land and resources, what's stopping larger nations from doing the same? And maybe that's the biggest surprise of all, that a small island nation can inspire some of the most powerful countries in the world to rethink how they build societies. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Singapore, don't forget to hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more content exploring the wonders of our world. Until next time, keep discovering, keep learning, and keep being inspired.